I'm quite nervous. Cheryl asked me last night if I'd qualify, and I do actually speak better if I write stuff down first in sort of instead of shooting from the hip. So I have got my own script. So excuse me if I keep my nose down in my script because it helps with my nerves. My name is Dee, and I am a recovered compulsive overeater, and I know I'm recovered because I found a solution that works. I know I'm recovered because one day at a time, because I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the grey sheet. I write those meals down and I text them to my sponsor at the same time every evening, and I don't eat in between those meals no matter what, and I do this without exception. My abstinence date is the 6th of April 2020, so I've just passed a year by the grace of God. I first found GreySheet after asking higher power to help me and after what I call a spiritual download. That's a leading from higher power that doesn't come from my own imagination. I googled for help for the phrase that came to me, which was compulsive overeating. Up came the GreySheet website and a story by a beautiful long-timer called Kay from Austin in Texas. I identified with her journey to recovery. I was ready, but I wasn't fully surrendered. I came into GreySheet in November 2008 and lost over 60 pounds over however many months I kept weighing and measuring. But I did not lose the denial that I was not as bad as some people doing this program. So I left with a big measure of arrogance, believing I could do this alone, not with higher powers' help, but on my own. It has taken me more than 10 years to hit rock bottom and finally bend the knee to higher power's will for my life, and his will for me is GreySheet. It took me coming totally to the end of myself, where I was not only broken in all control over compulsive eating, but also broken in my spiritual life. Both needed to be broken down to the foundation so a higher power could do some restoration and rebuilding. There was a lot of stuff in my life that didn't have his building permission and had to be ripped down as it was unstable and never part of his blueprint for my life. I don't want to focus on the lead up to GreySheet Abstinent tonight, but rather what I've learned in my first year of coming back, that I never learned in all my previous attempts to get abstinent, and pray that what I've learned keeps me abstinent and might help others in their journey. This is taken from my perspective, and as some interviews have a caveat, I'd say the opinions of this speaker do not necessarily represent those of every GreySheeter. In this year of recovery, I've done things differently based on what was going to protect my personal journey of abstinence, guided by my sponsor, who has been there for me on all the day ones of the past, the leaving, the coming back, the leaving again, and committing food for days, but not admitting I didn't actually eat what I'd committed until the dishonesty was so painful that I confessed. A huge amount of my issues have revolved around people pleasing and not looking after my emotional well-being. The inside job is generally self-sabotage and feeling I'm doing something wrong. I've often equated doing what's right for me as being selfish instead of seeing it as self-caring. My sponsor is helping me to learn I don't need to be afraid of doing things differently to someone else. What I eat, how I eat, and when I eat is between my sponsor and we both follow what it says on the GreySheet to the letter. I make no independent food decisions. I send her photos of the ingredients of food before I commit it, if it's a packet or tin, or if I need to take medication, I take a photograph and send it to her and ask first. And I weigh my food precisely, and I'm totally honest around my food, alone in my kitchen with my higher power beside me, as I keep to the commitment I make on a daily basis. This time round, I admitted to my head of department and my line manager at work the extent of the eating disorder, as it had meant I'd taken so many weeks off from work through mental health days when I was binge eating. I was full of so much self-disgust and shame, I couldn't even face seeing anyone at work. I got signed off for 3 weeks at the beginning of my comeback and asked the GP to allow me to stay off to have a kind of home rehab that allowed me to attend daytime meetings on Zoom, which were many during the beginning of the pandemic, and thank God they're continuing. I went down a grade at work to take on a less stressful role, as I didn't want to put my absence at risk. In the past, I wouldn't have done that. My pride wouldn't have allowed me, but abstinence has to be the most important thing in my life. And I've been open and honest with my office colleagues, and now they respect and protect my abstinence in the workplace. I sent an email to my head of department 2 days ago on the 6th of April to tell him that I had 1 year back-to-back recovery from binge eating, and he emailed me back to say it was the best email he could have received to start his day. He was so happy for me and was encouraging me to keep at it. This for me is my key point. For me, I have learned there is one grey sheet, but different ways of sponsoring. I found a sponsor who says it's okay for me not to make 3 phone calls a day. It is okay for me not to sponsor another person until I feel ready, and I may never feel ready, so I do service in other ways. I've learned that not everyone is suitable to be a sponsor, especially if they're not ready to sponsor. In the past, I had 3 sponsees at one time, but I couldn't take the emotional drain it put on me because of the times when I was too ill to be able to face speaking to anyone. On that occasion, I chose to pick up so I'd lose my qualification to be a sponsor, rather than admit I couldn't sponsor, and it took me a long time to come back after picking up and to deal with the shame of overnight leaving my sponsees because of my mental health stuff. I do not want to put myself or another sponsor in that position again, so for now, I don't sponsor anyone. My sponsor allows me to text my food to her daily now that I'm a year abstinent. I set an alarm on my phone, so I make sure I do that at the same time every evening. It is a mental and emotional issue, my fear of vocal communication, but until that is healed, I'm not ready to put my abstinence at risk. I've learned to tell people with a new confidence that I weigh and measure my food because I'm in recovery from an eating disorder, and GreySheet is the only solution that keeps me mentally and physically well. I don't care about what others think about my weighing and measuring. It is the most precious gift, something no one else can give to me. I have to possess it for myself and not allow anyone to steal it or degrade it, including myself. I've learned that I communicate much better in written form. It gives me time to think, to not over-imagine what someone's tone of voice or pause might mean. On Zoom, what a straight face might mean, thinking I'm being judged, or imagine that people don't really want to talk to me if they see my number come up on their phone. So I text before I call or respond to people by messaging them rather than talking. I've learned to be honest. I didn't used to be honest. GreySheet has given me honesty around my food and recognizing who I really am and who I believe God wants me to be. I've never been in that position before when I've been in GreySheet recovery, because this time I'm fully committed. It is not the recommended or recognized method for recovery fellowship, texting people or not making the 3 phone calls, but I have to work with what I've got. And as my sponsor says, the definition of abstinence is 3 weighed and measured meals a day off the GreySheet, handed over to my sponsor or another qualified person with 90 days of back-to-back abstinence. This works for me. And being honest in this way is actually brave for me because I don't normally own these feelings, because I fear what others in GreySheet may think, those who follow a stricter set of rules around tools than I do. And reading this out means I don't have to look at anyone's expressions in case my mind reads a stern face as disapproval. Being on video is a blessing and a curse for someone with huge insecurities. As I discover my authentic self, I'm losing the masks I've worn in the past. My joking, my smiles, and my kindness are genuine, and so is the inner child cowering with her back to the wall in case you stab me in the back when the video is off or the microphones are muted and we go back to our own home space. At the back of the GSA 12 Steps and 12 Traditions is a page called A New Beginning, and there are listed the freedoms beyond our wildest dreams that are promises of recovery. Some I can already tick, and some I still long for. And to end my qualification, I'd like to read them out because they are very precious to me, and I only have these because of GreySheet abstinence. Freedom from the physical craving. Freedom to experience clarity of mind. Freedom to eat diversely from a wide variety of delicious and nourishing fruits, vegetables, oils, fats, and proteins. Freedom to live in a body healthier than any previously known. Freedom to become what each of us have always wished to be, or someone new. Freedom from the exorbitant cost, serious damage and health consequences of food addiction and compulsive eating behaviours and thinking. Freedom to relate to others independently and interdependently. Thanks, Arga. Freedom to experience one's own reality. Freedom to express oneself clearly and authentically to others and to higher power. Freedom to set and keep appropriate external and internal boundaries, the ones that hold others at appropriate distances and those that contain what comes from inside of oneself. Freedom to fulfill the potential ignored or forgotten and to become who I am now, and freedom to strive to align with higher powers will. And that's it. Thank you.